Hello there, my friends, and welcome to another video. And this is going to be my video for my digging through my stash series here on YouTube. And we are working on letter Q. And Q is, I consider, kind of a hard prompt because there's very limited words. And so I decided to go with quilt because either that or queen or quail or something like that. But I am going to go with quilt. And if I remember, I'm going to insert a photograph of the quilt that I am trying to follow, or the inspiration that I got. Basically, it is a quilt of lemons. Well, they made like the blocks to make it look like a lemon. And I really like that idea. And I have some summer photos that I'd like to work on. And so that's what I'm going to try to do here. I was also inspired by this pattern paper, this paper pack from Simple Stories. Oh gosh, I should have written down the name of the paper pack. But anyways, it has a lot of summer themes in it, and so I thought that I would work on that. One of the backgrounds that I really liked was this yellow, kind of has this wavy look, and yellow is, for me, denotes lemon, so I'm going to try to do that. Now, for the lemons, when I was studying the quilt that I wanted to copy, I noticed that it's a square that's cut into four, and then just two sides of it were cut into corners to, I guess, make it look like the sides of the lemon. And so I used my biggest rounder corner punch, and that's when I'm cutting or using to cut those corners. Initially, I had cut this 2-inch square into 1-inch squares, but I realized that I need to cut them, or I need to punch the corners first, because the 1-inch square is so tiny that I couldn't, like, it's gonna get lost if I put that into the corner rounder as a 1-inch square. So that's why I decided to cut another 2-inch square and then round it first before I cut the squares into four. And then another thing that I noticed when I was studying the inspiration picture that I got was that there were 2-inch white squares, and I'm sure if you have seen a quilt, you know that they do some stitching on the top of the quilt itself, and they use just white thread. And so I didn't want to stitch on this. I feel like that's going to take a long time. But instead, I wanted to add some dimension to it. So those white squares that you see me cutting, they're just white cardstock. I'm actually going to run them through my Cuttlebug using an embossing folder. Another thing that I noticed with the quilt that I was studying is that, of course, because it's lemons, they added some leaves to it. And I have a leaf die from, I think it is a Tim Holtz die. It's just a bunch of different leaves. And so I pulled this one out thinking that one would be enough. But now that I'm looking at it, I feel like it needs another one. And so I'm going to grab the die again and run it through and add the second, so I can add a second die to the top of the lemon. As you can see, I'm also using scraps. So this is another great way of using your scraps, is to use it for like a quilt inspired layout, because with quilts you need like smaller pieces, smaller shapes, and I think that that would be, that works well with your design. I actually made a mistake. It's not a Tim Holtz, it's a Sizzix die. So that's what I'm using here for the leaves. I pulled it out because I was thinking that maybe there was another type of leaf that would be good to use, and I could just use a single one, but most of them are too big. So this is the time where, see, lately I haven't been scrapbooking enough that I forget what I need for the types of process that I need. So when I was trying to do the embossing of my papers, I had used my A plate and my B plate, but I forgot that I just need two B plates for that. So now that I have all of my like so-called quilt elements done, I'm going to go ahead and go with the background. And so again, I decided to use this yellow paper because it just denotes summer, plus I don't know, it connects with the lemon theme that I'm going for. And then because it's already yellow and I have like, yellow accents and different kinds of things, I also needed to back up my lemon with something else. So you're going to see me do that. But first, I did cut that yellow piece a little bit smaller because I want to frame it. That's just how my process goes. I like to frame my layouts just to keep the eye in the center. And I have pulled out a few more papers here that I thought would be good. I do have like that whole stack of the paper pack there because I'm just kind of going through some of the things that would work with this particular layout. And I like the background paper too, but I'm going to go and use up this big one instead. I think that's my problem with double-sided paper, especially with when a collection is something that I really like. I like to use all of the papers, but sadly, they only have one of each of the papers. So that's kind of sometimes a big problem for me. So I'm going to use this blue paper here, and I'm going to use that to back up my lemons, my lemon quilt. And so I know that I'm going to use at least a third of this paper. So I'm just going to, or maybe a quarter, I'm going to I'm going to add some adhesive all the way down so I can just start gluing the shapes that I want on there. And the design that I was going for, based off of the inspiration that I was studying, is that they had a lemon square or the lemon accent and then the white square, and then they alternate lemon, white, square, lemon. So that's what I'm going to do here. And I gotta say, this is by far one of my favorites from this collection and one of my favorites that I've done, that a scrapbook that I have created ever since I've started scrapbooking. I know that that's kind of like a tall order to say, but I really did like this lemon. And I think that's one of the things that I will take away from this digging through my stash. Not only was this challenge series helping me to look at my current stash in a different way, but it also helps me think outside of my box because I tend to, have kind of my comfort zone and then not look at my products in a different way. So now that I have laid out my quilt panel, I've also decided to add some stitching to it. Now, I did say I wasn't going to do any stitching, but I decided to do pen stitching instead because that was easier. But I do also like how that makes the lemon stand out. Not sure if I were to do it again, not sure if I was going to do the X's in the center, but I do like the stitching on the edges. I have two pictures here, and these are just kind of like your everyday non-event type of photos, and these are just pictures of me and my kids going to the park, a nearby park. It was summer, and over here, if I don't pay attention to my kids that much, they'll just spend all their days on the computer or indoors doing other things. But I felt like it was a beautiful day and that we needed to soak up the sun. And that title was actually from one of the cut apart sheets from the pattern paper. This particular collection had some 4x4s and 3x4s and 2x2 cut apart. So I use that. I also use one of the 2x2s to add another kind of different lemon on the panel. Instead of just the pattern paper, I used one with words, and that one I did cut that up into a lemon shape, but I did not add any pen stitching, like that cross pen stitching that I was doing for the rest. I did not add that there because I didn't want to cover up the words. And so another thing that I wanted to add was a border on the left side of the paper, because that panel sits on the border on the left side, and I felt like it needed some other different color there. So I'm adding this paper with a scallop punch border. The scallop was there, or was added there, because of all of the corner rounded edges. I thought that that would be a good repetition of that pattern. I don't know if you noticed, but I also did that kind of pattern on the title. I did add that. I matted that with the same blue, just so that it will have it will repeat that same pattern. And I really like how that turned up. And honestly, this page didn't take me that long. It took me a while to kind of figure out what I wanted to do, how I wanted to incorporate the quilt. So, I mean, in reality, it did took me days to create this, but when I started working on it, I believe it took me less than an hour to make this page. You won't see me add some journaling here, but in the close-up, you will see me add some journaling, typed up journaling strips on the top of the photo. The second photo, there is that, the space for the sky, and I decided to use that to hold my journaling, which is basically just saying that I literally dragged my kids outdoors because I wanted them to experience the sunshine, and so we had a little bit of an impromptu picnic at the park. And these photos, we found a tree that was a good shade, and so that's where we had put our blanket and then our pack lunch. So that is my layout for today. Thank you so much for watching. If you like these videos, please consider giving it a thumbs up and subscribing, and I will catch you guys in the next video. Bye.